only 7% of South Africa's municipalities received clean audits. Well, the South African Local Government Association, SALGA, remember, launched a Municipal Barometer web portal which tracks a predetermined list of indicators. And let's see where we are in terms of improving the fortunes of our municipalities. To discuss, we're joined by the President of SALGA, who's also, of course, the former Mayor of Johannesburg, Parks Tau. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much.
Also involved, the Human Sciences Research Council, and we have Professor Narnia Bohler-Muller with us from Pretoria. Thank you for being with us, Professor. Let me start with you, Mr. Tau. A response to what the Auditor General now, the powers he now has, because something else passed through Parliament today, whereby he can take corruption to the authorities. Previously, apparently, he could only raise it within government departments. How significant is that?
We welcome the amended legislation to the authority of the Auditor General to the extent that it improves accountability and the performance of our local authorities and government in general, because we as SALGA have been concerned over time about the deterioration of the control environment in certain municipalities, and we think that it's something that requires attention. We've been doing a lot of training of our member municipalities to enable them to improve accountability, oversight, and organizational performance. But we were quite taken aback by the reality that even these initiatives have not yielded the results in certain instances as a result of negligence, I should say, on some of our members. And we think that we require greater authority from the Auditor General to take action where action needs to be taken. We also think, though, that there's the other side of the coin, which has to do with building the requisite capacity in local government, particularly with evolving legislation. You would know that legislation has been evolving in a significant way. There is the score, which is the Municipal Standard Chartered accounts, which requires new set of indicators to be met by local government, and we need to build the capacity of our local authorities to report against the new chart of accounts that are there for local authorities. And it's something that we've been working with national government on to ensure that we prepare and train our local authorities for financial reporting.
Well, we ran a poll earlier. Let me get first your response, Professor, on this. We were asking people what they thought was problematic in municipalities. Was it corruption or incompetence? Those are different things, or just a lack of resources for people to do their jobs. You at the coalface, what do you think, Professor?
I think it's a combination of those things. We've just been doing a few research projects comparing provinces when it comes to service delivery protests and the reasons why people would go to the extent of violent protest. There are different reasons in different areas of the country, in different provinces, and even in different municipalities. So some would be more concerned with corruption, as we found with the Northwest, whereas service delivery and housing is something that really comes across strongly in the Western Cape. So we're continuing with this research, but it is important to note here that different things worry different people at different times and in different places. So there's no one-off solution to something like this. We need to capacitate our public servants and local government officials. There's no doubt about that. But we need to make sure that we are focusing our interventions, and that's where the research comes in. We need to know what's going wrong where, and then make sure that we're making the correct interventions. So in areas where there's not much corruption, not much fraud, perhaps we should focus more on other issues, such as the actual delivery of services. But it is important to see this as nuanced and to see it as something that there's not going to be any silver bullet. And so I think the Local Government Association that Mr. Tau is leading is very important, because they collect the kind of data that we need in order to ensure that there are focused interventions.
Do you agree with that? No one silver bullet?
Certainly agree, and I think it's one of the key things that are coming out of the Municipal Barometer, it is the reality that with up-to-date data and data sets, we're able to monitor what the key challenges and issues are, what the trends are with regards to financial performance, with regards to urbanization, with regards to the fiscal instruments available in local authorities, but also what the demographic trends are. And these enable local government to be able to plan ahead, not only plan ahead, but to also execute in a manner that's realistic to the data sets that are in front of them.
Well, what are the important trends? What are you getting out of this that is practical and can be used to make things better? Give me an example.
Well, certainly demographic trends are very important because demographic trends indicate, for example, fiscal distribution in relation to how government subsidizes different local authorities. But the demographic trends also enable us to monitor a number of key indicators.
So how many people
coming into cities? What does that mean for a city like Johannesburg in terms of service provision? How are cities meeting their obligations to provide basic services such as water, sanitation, housing, and so on, and what the resource envelope should be that's distributed to local government? Because a barometer such as this enables us to put an argument forward that says, if we are to achieve the objectives of ensuring zero hunger by 2030, if we are to ensure access to water and sanitation, if you take into account demographic trends, this is how you need to invest to enable you to meet those objectives. So it becomes an important tool for decision making by national government, but it also becomes an important tool for local government to say, if we're working from a similar resource base with a comparative municipality, how do we benchmark against each other? Because then municipalities can be able to benchmark against each other to determine whether the efficacy of their own investments and the progress they are making against their peers. So it's an important data tool that is available to local government to enable them to make their decisions, but it is also available to all stakeholders to monitor what developments are taking place and therefore enable policy development and decision making.
Professor, do you have any examples where the data can lead to practical change?
Well, one would hope that the data that we have will lead to practical change and the policymakers will take note. I think that there are some disturbing trends at all levels of government, national, provincial and local, in terms of people losing faith in democracy. And that's a pretty macro issue, because democracy is not only about voting during election time, but actually participating in decision-making processes, including at local government level. So people feel a little bit disillusioned about the fact that their voices may not be heard and responded to by officials. And for this reason, there is a growing level of frustration about the concept and the state of democracy within South Africa. And that is a trend that we're seeing across provinces. And that has happened in the research that we've published now on the Northwest Province, severe drop in trust of local government and trust and belief in democracy. And in the Western Cape as well, a lot of dissatisfaction about the way in which citizens and the way in which inhabitants are being consulted when it comes to service delivery. So we need to look at those worrying trends and make sure that when we talk about democracy in South Africa, we do so within the context of the Constitution, and that we follow the values. You were speaking about the year of Nelson Mandela previously. Follow those values that have been entrenched in our Constitution.
All right, so that's very interesting. And I guess municipalities are the face of democracy, because that's where you interact with officials and it's linked to who you voted in. Do you agree?
And the barometer would also enable us to track that. We would be able to track whether, in fact, the way in which the ward committee system functions is enabling and entrenching of our democratic values and systems as local government, the way in which our municipalities are developing their integrated development plans, enable communities to be part of the development of not just policies, but also programs and budgets of municipalities. So with a barometer, you can then be able to evaluate whether these ideal objectives that we've set for ourselves are being attained and achieved.
Mr. Tau, is this not a very sophisticated measuring system that isn't changing things? Because you said it was implemented in 2013, a change last year. Earlier this year, we got one of the most damning Auditor General reports on municipalities yet.
In fact, one of the things that we've done with the barometer is to simplify it, to enable easier access through a web portal for local government officials.
Things?
It's important because it enables people to make decisions. Now that we've revised the barometer and now that we've published the first set of data sets, we then would be able to monitor how local governments are performing against this. But this data is also important to enable us, for example, as SALGA, to go to the Finance and Fiscal Commission and say, we require policy change with regards to how local government receives a share in the national fiscus, and this is the evidence that suggests that you need to be able to do that. So it's usable by local authorities, it can be used by ourselves as a local government association, and it can be used by research institutions such as the HSRC that should inform policy development. So it's a tool that's accessible to everybody to be able to use.
Professor, let me ask you both the same question then. I guess let's take a simple example. Potholes in Sandton, the richest square mile in Africa. What is going wrong there, and how does this help to figure out what needs to be changed and what needs to go right?
Okay, I think... Yes, that's a very good question. Potholes in Sandton just gives you an indication of what else is going wrong in the country where the money isn't. And there are, as I say, numerous factors, but there's a lot of soft issues underlying this. The way in which people communicate with one another, the way in which needs are expressed and needs are met. So I think that's one of the issues. The other is obviously we have very, very strict financial instruments in this country for a very good reason. And those are laws that need to be taught not only to municipal officials but also to citizens so that they themselves can monitor what's going on in local government. So it is very unfortunate that things have been sliding, and I know the Auditor General has expressed his concern around this, and we are all concerned. But hopefully we can use this information in order to have targeted interventions and to actually ensure that things are getting better. But to tell you the truth, I don't know what it's going to take. However, I think there's going to be an upswing in terms of trust in democracy, and that is going to assist people to become more active in the way in which their municipalities are run, and that might make the difference that we need.
All right, then let's end with Mr. Tau. Can you comment, based on your experience as Mayor of Johannesburg, perhaps? And something I asked the Kokte minister once, a lot of the concern has been around politicians being put in technical positions. If we try to get the right skills in the right places, do we have enough skills?
And those are the issues that would be monitoring. So we'd say in the barometer, how do you have municipalities deployed in terms of HR? Do you have the requisite capacity to develop, manage and maintain roads? Does the municipality have a visual conditioning index of our roads? Is it investing against a set of objectives that have been set out, and how they're performing against their peers? So this is a very viable tool that enables us to be able to look at it, but it also enables residents to be able to hold their public representatives accountable, because they would say, if the municipality has these policies, if it has set out to achieve these objectives, if it has allocated budgets to do these things, how are they performing against those budgets, and how are they performing against their peers?
Are there any trends yet in terms of that skills, the capacity?
The trends are that in larger capacity municipalities, and these are your metropolitan municipalities and larger intermediary cities, you have greater institutional and fiscal capacity to confront some of the challenges. It doesn't mean that all these challenges can be overcome overnight, but we're able to monitor whether against set objectives local authorities are meeting their objectives and are investing in the right sort of areas. We are worried about capacity in lower income, lower resourced municipalities, because the reality is you are unable to attract the appropriate level of skill, but also do not have the resources to be able to undertake some of these responsibilities. And some of these come out in the Auditor General's report. So the Auditor General will say that there's fruitless expenditure with regards to interest charged, because at a particular point, if you're a low-capacity municipality, you might not have the cash flows that would pay certain invoices on time. So when the auditors come back and we look at, for example, fruitless and irregular expenditure, sometimes when you look into the detail, it's indicative of a systemic problem that says this municipality, in terms of its cash flows, is unable to meet the obligations on time, and therefore interest charges are increasing. So it also enables that level of monitoring of performance.
All right, well, thank you for the update. An important tool, and President of the South African Local Government Association, Mr. Parks Tower, and Professor Narnia Bohler-Muller, thank you for joining us from Pretoria, both involved with that Municipal Barometer, and it is online. You can go check it out. I think www.municipalbarometer.co.za. All right, we take